The Colonial Age in Forge of Empires. Before I decide to research the first technology of the Colonial Age, I first fill both technologies, Muskets and Maritime Shipping, completely with forge points. This is a proven strategy at the beginning of each new age to shorten the time when you already have new age difficulty levels in your guild expedition, but don't have new age units yet. Then the time has finally come. The 7th age is reached. There is a reward for this, and some items will be unlocked immediately. These are mainly premium buildings, which are only built using diamonds. But you can get along very well without these buildings. I would rather save diamonds for other purposes, especially since these premium buildings will be mediocre in the next age. Today, you can hardly imagine that the game once ended with the late Middle Ages, and that on October 15th, 2012, the Colonial Age was the first new age added to the game. It still largely follows the familiar knitting patterns of the previous ages. Compared to the late Middle Ages, the costs for buildings were increased again. The demand for coins and supplies is gigantic. The travel times of the scout exceeds 24 hours for the first time, and the construction times, for example for residential buildings, are among the longest in the whole game and were reduced again significantly in later ages. If, as can be seen in the video, you are one of the lucky players who find the raw materials, paper and coffee on the map, you can save yourself the exploration of porcelain and industrial goods completely. The porcelain manufactory and the tar kiln are larger buildings and therefore less popular. So it can sometimes be more difficult to get these goods by trading. Since Colonial Age goods are used as a raw material in modern era, as so-called unrefined goods for the production of refined goods, it is worthwhile to produce larger stocks of these goods, which far exceed the current demand. This makes it a little bit easier later on. There is a quest that can be aborted, which wishes to explore you all goods technologies. However, it does not offer any significant rewards. Another tip for the side quest series: if you want to reduce the population, you don't necessarily have to demolish cultural buildings to do so. Removing a single piece of a street can already bring about the desired success. The research alone, without the new buildings, extensions and military units, devours exactly 1000 forge points, 150k coins and 421k supplies. It takes about 1.5 months to get all the forge points from the city hall. Whoever builds 40 Gambra roof houses in the Colonial Age will need 320k coins and 1.2 million supplies. Since Colonial Age buildings also require significantly more population, many players think of constructing a great building for population early. The military buildings and their expansion to 4 units each are also extremely expensive. In short, even considerable reserves of coins and supplies are quickly exhausted in the Colonial Age. In addition to the many forge points, a large number of goods are needed for research. If you follow my advice to never demolish goods buildings up to and including those of the late Middle Ages without having a stock of more than 300 per good, you will have no problems. If you are missing these goods, it is better to stay in the late Middle Ages and create the necessary conditions, example given, by exchanging the required Colonial Age goods for late Middle Ages goods. Nobody wants to get stuck in the middle of development. After all, at the end of the Colonial Age technology tree, Colonial Age goods are still needed. You can exchange late Middle Age goods for them or quickly conquer the provinces with the goods and build the 2 colonial goods productions, which will also fulfill the accompanying quests. One last time you will get 3 expansions through research. In future ages, there will be only 2 per age through research, and the city will grow slower than before. 2 additional expansions can be bought with diamonds, as at the beginning of each new age, and 2 more can be bought after conquering the respective provinces. With time, the city will also change optically. The colors of the Colonial Age are only slowly asserting themselves. The 2 great buildings of the Colonial Age are the Deal Castle and the Frauenkirche of Dresden. The Frauenkirche offers some happiness and produces goods daily. If you invest a lot of forge points in this building, you will tend to develop more slowly than other players. However, it makes the game easier and mistakes of the player are mitigated. Players who have an increased need for goods, whether for GVG or for negotiations during the guild expedition, also like this building. The Deal Castle improves the attack and defense of the city defense, increases the GVG reinforcement pool of your guild, and gives medals every 24 hours. The medals may be tempting at first, but the quantities are rather manageable. A great building has to convince with other strength. Compared to the observatory, the positive effect of the guild's reinforcement pool is rather marginal. The effect of the bonuses for the city defense works. No city is impregnable, but if something makes the life of looters harder, then the bonus of this building. As already with the Basilius Cathedral at the late Middle Ages. With the introduction of the PvP arena, this building becomes even more important. In the late Middle Ages, I had replaced all residential buildings with apartment houses. This is still the relevant type of housing even during most of the development within the Colonial Age. Only very late in the technology tree, the gambrel roof house can be developed. Replacing all residential buildings with gambrel roof houses immediately eats up gigantic amounts of coins and supplies. But you can't really get around it, because the demand for population is gigantic and space is actually always scarce. The expensive replacement of the houses only brings about 25% more population, so it cannot cover the growing demand alone. Additional houses have to be built. The most interesting supply production is the tobacco plantation. It requires slightly less space than the High Middle Ages farms, but produces more. As a relatively large building, it benefits especially from bonuses of great buildings and the motivation of other players. With the trading company, the colonial era offers a very efficient cultural building, but it is also very expensive again, especially in terms of the required supplies. The academies of the late Middle Ages will therefore keep most of them for the time being, and only older cultural buildings, example churches, will be replaced step by step. The city you can see in the video tends to have a little more cultural buildings than usual, as I can't get any polish on the beta server sometimes. Most players will certainly manage with significantly fewer cultural buildings than in my example. When the colonial military buildings are finally in place, the city looks quite different. However, the topic of fighting in the Colonial Age is so extensive that I will dedicate a separate video clip to it.